Is the special on your grocery receipt even a real discount? What if I told you that Australia's two biggest supermarkets have been taken to federal court for allegedly manufacturing fake price drops, raising prices on everyday products, then slapping a colourful down or prices dropped ticket on them so you'd think you were getting a deal? This is not a conspiracy theory. This is an active federal court case brought by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, the country's own consumer watchdog. The products involved are not obscure imports. They are Tim Tams, Strepsils, Oreos, Bega cheese. The stuff filling your trolley every single week. I spent weeks going through ACCC court filings, federal court documents, and internal pricing data that the regulator dragged out of these supermarkets using its compulsory investigation powers. What I found will change how you look at every single special sticker in that store. Because according to the ACCC, in hundreds of cases, when you thought you were scoring a bargain, you were actually paying more than you were before the discount started. Let me walk you through exactly how it worked, who got caught, and what you can do about it. First, let's understand the mechanics, because this isn't complicated. It's actually brutally simple, and that's what makes it so infuriating. Here's the formula. A product sits at a regular price for 6 months, a year, sometimes much longer. Customers get used to it. The price becomes background noise. Then the supermarket quietly raises that price by at least 15%, sometimes 30 or 40%, for a short period. We're talking 20 to 45 days. Long enough to establish a new, higher price on record. Then, and here's the move, the price comes back down, but not to where it was before. To somewhere in the middle. And then they slap a red and yellow ticket on the shelf. Down. Prices dropped. Was $7, now $6. Technically, the price did go down from the inflated spike. But compared to where it was before any of this started, you were paying more. Sometimes significantly more. The chair of the ACCC, Gina Cass-Gottlieb, described it exactly right. She called these discounts illusory because the saving was not real, it was theatre. And according to the ACCC, in many cases, this was not an accident or a side effect of inflation. They allege it was pre-planned. Coles and Woolworths allegedly knew before the price spike even happened that the product was going back on the discount promotion. The spike existed for one purpose, to manufacture a higher WAS price to make the deal look more impressive. A CCC barrister, Gary Rich, put it plainly in federal court. He said, "Nobody ever intended to charge full price for these products beyond the spike. This is planned, and the only reason the spike happens is because, in the lingo, they need to establish a higher price. It is the only reason. That is not cost of living pressures. That is engineering a fake discount." Now let's talk specifics. When you see the actual products named in these court filings, it hits differently. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, known as the ACCC, alleges Woolworths ran this scheme on 266 different products over a 20-month period between September 2021 and May 2023. For Coles, the allegation covers 245 products across 15 months between February 2022 and May 2023. Together, that is over 500 everyday grocery products across both chains. The Woolworths list includes Arnott's Tim Tams, Kellogg's cereal, Dolmio sauces, Doritos salsa, Friskies cat food, and Stay Free pads. The Coles list includes Arnott's Shapes, Band-Aids, Bega cheese, Cadbury chocolates, and Libra tampons. These are not niche products. These are the backbone of an average Australian shopping trolley. But let's look at specific examples that were filed in court because the numbers are genuinely shocking. Oreo Family Pack, Woolworths. For at least 696 days, nearly 2 years, Woolworths sold the Oreo Family Pack Original for $3.50. That was the regular price, the established price, the price every regular shopper knew. Then in November 2022, the price jumped to $5. It stayed there for 22 days. Then on December 20th, 2022, just before Christmas, when Australians are stocking up and watching every dollar, Woolworths put the Oreos on a prices dropped promotion. The new price was $4.50. The shelf ticket showed a price of $5. But the real price, the one that existed for almost 2 years, was $3.50. At $4.50, shoppers were paying 29% more than the product's long-standing regular price. And they were being shown a bright yellow discount ticket telling them they were getting a deal. The ACCC alleges Woolworths had pre-planned this entire sequence. The decision to spike the price and then put the product on Prices Dropped was made simultaneously. The spike had one job: create a new reference price. Strepsils. Throat lozenges, Coles. This one sold for 649 days on Down Down at $5.50. Then the price jumped to $7 for 28 days. Then it went back down to $6 under Down Down. The net result was Australians with sore throats were paying 9% more than before, while a discount sticker told them the price was down. Maggi Super Noodles, Woolworths. 4-pack for $6.50 was the established price. It was raised to $9, then discounted to $8 under the promotion. That was 33% above the pre-spike price, dressed up as a saving. Raid Exterminator Bombs, 3-pack. The established price was $10. It spiked to $15. The promotional discount price was $13. That was 30% above the real regular price, and according to court filings, these were not pricing errors. In many cases, the ACCC alleges the decision to spike the price and the decision to put the product on promotion were made at the same time. The whole sequence was built around manufacturing that red and yellow ticket. Here is where the numbers become staggering. The ACCC estimates that Woolworths and Coles combined sold tens of millions of the affected products during the relevant period. Tens of millions. They also derived, in the regulator's words, significant revenue from those sales. Former ACCC chair Alan Fells called this the case of the century. He told SBS News it affects millions of Australian consumers and households across hundreds of stores. When someone in that position describes a single consumer case that way, you pay attention. Consider the timing. This alleged conduct ran from late 2021 through to mid-2023. That was the exact same period that Australian households were being crushed by the cost of living crisis. That was when the Reserve Bank was raising interest rates. That was when people were cutting spending, looking for ways to stretch their grocery budget, and specifically seeking out the Down Down and Prices Dropped items because they genuinely needed the savings. The ACCC filing put it bluntly. These representations concerned the price of household staples at a time of increasing cost of living pressures and were made in the context of a program specifically promoted as being designed to help consumers make long-term savings on the cost of their groceries. They were sold as lifelines during a financial crisis, and they allegedly were not real. What Coles and Woolworths say. Both supermarkets are defending the proceedings. They deny any wrongdoing. Coles says the price increases reflected genuine cost pressures. Suppliers were requesting price rises because of surging global commodity costs, packaging, freight, utilities, and international shipping. And Coles says it was trying to balance those pressures while offering value to customers as quickly as possible. Woolworths says it did not initiate the price spikes. Woolworths says the increases came from suppliers, and their barrister told the federal court that the ACCC's case is misconceived. Here is the problem. The ACCC articulates it well. Whether Coles and Woolworths had legitimate business reasons to raise prices is actually beside the point. The point is what the Down Down and Prices Dropped tickets communicated to the consumer standing in the aisle. Rich, the ACCC barrister, put it plainly. The consumer does not know anything about that commercial justification. They are just told the price of this product is down. And we say that is not fair dinkum. That is the Cyrax. You can raise prices for legitimate reasons. What you cannot do under Australian consumer law is then tell a shopper those raised prices represent a genuine discount if they do not. Now, let's talk money. Because when a corporation has this many stores and this much market power, you need to understand what accountability might actually look like. The maximum penalty under the Australian consumer law, which increased partway through the period of alleged conduct in November 2022, is up to $50 million per breach, or 3 times the value of the benefit the company derived from the conduct, or 30% of the company's adjusted turnover during the breach period, whichever is greater. And remember, the ACCC is not treating this as one breach. They are treating each individual representation to a consumer as a separate contravention. That's tens of millions of individual transactions. Former ACCC Chair Fells has said publicly he would expect, if the allegations are upheld, a very hefty fine, much more than $150 million. Consumer law expert Jeannie Marie Patterson has said Coles would face at minimum $50 million if found liable. For reference, Qantas was ordered to pay $100 million for selling tickets to flights it had already cancelled. Optus was ordered to pay $100 million over predatory sales practices. In September 2024, when the ACCC launched the Coles case, Coles Group reported a net profit after tax of over $1 billion. So even a 9-figure fine would represent roughly 1 year's profit. And beyond the ACCC proceedings, there is now a class action. GMP Law filed a separate class action against Woolworths in the federal court in November 2025. They estimate the average Australian consumer could be eligible for a refund between $200 and $1,300 or more, depending on how much they spent at these supermarkets during the relevant period. A joint liability trial for the Woolworths case is scheduled for April 2026. This is far from over. How to protect yourself. So what do you actually do with this information next time you are standing in the aisle staring at a yellow ticket? First, stop trusting the WAS price. The WAS price displayed on a promotional ticket is the most recent elevated price, not the established regular price. It is legally meaningless as a reference point for how good the deal actually is. Second, look at the unit price. Regulations changed in Australia requiring supermarkets to display per unit pricing more clearly. That is the price per 100 grams, per litre, per item. When comparing products, ignore the promotional price entirely and compare unit prices. This is the number that cannot easily be manipulated. Focus on unit price. Third, use price tracking. The ACCC inquiry, which published its final report in February 2025, recommended that supermarkets be required to publish clear and accurate pricing histories. In the meantime, tools like Grocer, Get Price List, and the Choice Supermarket Price Comparison Tracker let you see historical price data. If you buy a product regularly, check whether this special is actually lower than what you paid 6 months ago. Fourth, buy home brands for commodities. The alleged manipulation primarily affected branded products, Tim Tams, Strepsils, Oreos, brand names that promotional campaigns are built around. Store brand milk, store brand flour, store brand pasta, these have no promotional campaign to manufacture. The incentive structure is different. Consider choosing store brands. Fifth, ignore promotional signage completely. Do not let the red ticket drive the purchase. If you were going to buy it anyway, check the unit price. If you are not planning to buy it, a down sticker is not a reason to start, because according to what is now before a federal court, that sticker may not mean what you think it means. There is something genuinely troubling about what this case reveals, beyond the specific products and the specific dollars. Coles and Woolworths together control somewhere around 65% of the Australian grocery market. When you shop for food in this country, there is almost nowhere else to go. Aldi is the main alternative, some independent retailers. That is largely it. That is an extraordinary amount of power, and power of that scale carries a responsibility to be straight with customers, especially during a period when those customers are stretched thin, relying on those promotional campaigns to actually deliver value. The alleged conduct here was not a side effect of complexity. It was not an accident. If the ACCC case holds up, it was a deliberate strategy to simulate savings that did not exist, and it ran, not for a few weeks, but for 15 to 20 months. The ACCC did not identify this through a lucky tip-off. They found it through consumer complaints and social media monitoring. Australians noticed something was off. They contacted the regulator, and the regulator used its compulsory investigation powers to pull the internal pricing documents and found exactly what consumers suspected. That matters. because it means the system can work when people speak up. The Coles Federal Court hearing kicked off in February 2025. The Woolworths hearing is scheduled for April 2026. These cases will play out over months, but the Court of Public Opinion has already weighed in, and Australia's two biggest supermarkets have already paid a reputational price. The next time you see "down down" or "prices dropped," remember that jingle was in the Federal Court of Australia because the country's consumer watchdog said it was not fair dinkum. An independent judge is now deciding whether they were right. Shop with your eyes open. If this video gave you something to think about next time you're in the grocery aisle, hit the like button and share it with someone who still thinks the special is always a special. Subscribe so you do not miss what we uncover next. Ring that notification bell